you had a good week. So good to see you once again here on Leading Edge. I'm Jeff Smith. For this week, this is one of those topics we wanted to bring you today that it deserves to have a little bit more conversation than just that 30-second soundbite sometimes you see during the course of the week. And for that, I wanted to bring in my guests and introduce to you Senator Ron Freeman and also Jacqueline Banks. Jacqueline representing the Toledo Fair Housing Center, and also Sena, a fair housing advocate, joining us here today to talk about one of those things during the pandemic, which I guess it really grabbed my attention, Sena, because of the attention it grabbed. That being a documentary, a Zoom-based documentary called Zip Code Matters. And I know in our conversations that we've had, it still boggles your mind at the attention that it grabbed. Let's kind of set the stage for everybody who doesn't know about it at this point. It's hard to not know about it, but what they don't know. Zip Code Matters is, finish that sentence.
A documentary that it was definitely a work of passion and from my heart. I wanted to create a video that people could share with each other. It's only 28 minutes long, and we were able to jam-pack a lot of information into it. I wanted it to be a tool to create conversations across the country regarding life determinants is determined by where you live. And as people have...
Was this a new concept?
No.
To say the zip code matters?
No, it hasn't been. In fact,
yeah.
A couple of the people who were interviewed in the documentary couldn't believe how much attention the documentary was getting. And
because they've been talking about it for years?
For years.
Yeah.
And like, how did this happen? And what was that secret sauce? And I think part of the secret sauce was the intention of just telling the truth of how we got to where we're at.
Basically saying that your lot in life is determined by where you are planted on this planet Earth.
Yep, where you grow up, the neighborhood you grow up in, what resources are there? How far is it for you to get to the grocery store? How far is it to get to the doctor? Is there transportation available to get you to a job? When you watch the documentary, you're going to find out that pollution levels play a role in it. Lead levels play a role in it. There are so many different things that come into play where you grow up. And if you and it's funny because it started off with people not believing that your zip code could be more important to the way that your life turns out than your genetic code.
Jacqueline, we've heard the words racism, we've heard the word segregation, modern day segregation used in looking at this plight, this issue that we bring to the forefront, once again discussing it here today on Leading Edge. And I told Sena, I said, I wanted to bring you guys on today to kind of move the ball forward a little bit. And as we talk, so we get the release of this movie, of this documentary, and it gets critical acclaim all across the world for that matter. But as you look at the job ahead, what is the work that still is being done or needs to be done?
Wow, that's a loaded question, isn't it?
We can break it down. We've got the time, as I said at the start.
Well, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to be here today.
Absolutely.
I think that the initial start is with something like Zip Code Matters, is just having those hard conversations, is opening the door and creating.
Let me stop you there. What are the hard conversations?
The hard conversations are that everyone doesn't have access. Everyone does not. As Sena was saying, where you live, there may or may not be a grocery store in the corner. You may not be able to readily get to a physician. What kind of barriers are there? It's not equal across the board. So I think having that general understanding and saying, it doesn't make a zip code bad, and it doesn't make you bad that your determinants are better than mine, but it's just that what do we do to help bring equity?
Yeah.
And I think that that's really where the conversation needs to start. We need to get away from the word equality, because equity is what needs to happen. But Zip Code Matters and conversations that are uncomfortable, to say, don't feel bad about what you have, but we need to help those that don't have do better. We always say do better in Toledo, and we can do that if we partner and we take a hard look and not beat ourselves up, but just say, from this point on, we're going to do
Right.
different.
Exactly.
We're going to do different. We're going to open doors for people.
We talked about the critical acclaim of the film, and I don't forget your point that you're about to make here, but I did want to ask real quick, what stood out? What stood out for people? What stood out for the critics when they viewed this and they said, this is an amazing piece of work, the message here? Was it the message, or was it just how it was put together during COVID?
It was about the message. I think that one of the things many of us don't realize is the role that the government played in creating the redlined communities that exist. And the government played a big role in it. And basically, I would be so bold as to say that they created it on purpose. And here we are left trying to fix it. So when
Explain for people, that term is used quite a bit throughout that 28 minutes, redline community. What does that mean?
The redline communities, these are communities originally that the government would not insure the loans or mortgages that were made in those communities. Therefore, the banks wouldn't loan in those communities. So we have disinvestment as coming forward. When you look at what happened, let's just take a look at like 2008 and 9. We had this huge housing crash. Well, guess what happened to those communities? Those communities, those homes have been bought up by investors who don't even live here in Toledo. They don't live in any one particular community. And guess who they're serving? Not their tenants. They're serving their stakeholders. They're the people that want dividends at the end of the day.
Sure.
But
let me play devil's advocate
I
to
want you
that
to.
and put you back at the fact that has been going on since people opened up a Monopoly game and sat down at the kitchen table and played the game Monopoly. So that is the mentality, is it not, as far as those who buy properties?
absolutely, that is the mentality.
So where does it fall off and where does it go?
They forget about the humanity
Yes.
in which they're reaping their profits from.
Right.
They're not looking at the human beings that are moving into these units and helping them have a good quality life.
Right.
Within there, the living conditions in which these individuals, some of these individuals right here in our own community are living in, are egregious.
Well, let me ask as you investigate, and I know there have been stories that we've even followed here as far as blighted conditions and those who are these negligent landlords that exist. But are they answering to any set of standards anywhere, or do they just answer to themselves for the most part? What have you found?
Well, that is why the Fair Housing Act exists, and that is really why the Fair Housing Center exists, and other fair housing organizations like ours all over the country. We all belong to a national fair housing organization called NAFA, and that is our role. We try, our goal at the Fair Housing Center is we try to educate first, but if that does not work, then we do litigate. And because everybody deserves fair housing. The other thing is that within the Fair Housing Act, there are federally protected classes, locally protected classes, and everyone falls into one. And so, just kind of bouncing off of what Senna, was just saying is that, no one is above the law. And when you have the disinvestment, and you have no tie to the community, you don't think about the people that live there. And or about fixing the conditions, and what does that mean long term, for those individuals? It can be devastating. And so our call volume, since the pandemic is just, it is so high, and we do our best to serve the community and to advocate. But to your point as well, it does require us targeting from all different areas. So we work on public policy. We're looking at government and local policy and working with our elected officials. We're also, we work very closely with other agencies, with sister agencies in Toledo, and partnering with them. Also with business, and because as Zip Code Matters points out, it's everything is interconnected. It really is more like it's like a spindle. It's like it has spokes. So you have the zip code, but then you have healthcare, and then you have housing, and then you have you have education, you have transportation. It's all so closely, intricately tied together. But there is a big concern when people that don't live in our community own properties. They don't keep them up. They become dilapidated, they become blighted, and we've really done a lot of work, even within our organization, on going out and trying to hold landlords and property owners accountable when those conditions exist.
We're going to take a break, our first break here. Stay with us. We continue to talk about Zip Code Matters, how we move that conversation forward. Your lot in life being determined by where you live. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back here on Leading Edge, talking about Zip Code Matters, the documentary that was released just a couple of years ago. We are trying to move the ball forward. Jacqueline Banks from the Fair Housing Center, also Senator Marat Friedman joining me here today. She was the writer and director of that film. You are going to New York and to talk more about this film, the message it sent forward. But because of that trip and because the message is still out there, even now, almost 2 years since the release of the documentary, you said, we need to get beyond just saying, okay, we put this movie out there, everybody gets it. There's got to be action. There's got to be an action plan. Right. Where is that action plan?
That action plan is for us to start having community conversations and addressing the systemic issues that exist. Unless we know how to build great communities, right? We do it all the time.
Do we?
Yes, take a look around. There are some well-resourced communities within our own area.
Okay. Are you talking suburbs, or are you talking?
Yes, I'm talking suburbs,
okay.
Predominantly, white neighborhoods. But when you take a look at our urban core, have we invested in our urban core the same? Have we taken a look at it and said, okay, what's missing? How do we bring it in? We can't take just one person, one organization, or two organizations, or just city government, or just, no, it's going to take all of us to take a look at that and address it as a holistic situation.
When you get that lead organization, though, and check me if I'm wrong here, if this is a fair assessment. You get the leader who is doing a lot of work and is taking the ball, right, and running with it. All of a sudden, all the other players around start watching that leader do all the work. And to your point, we need all hands on deck, right?
Correct.
But that's not happening.
No, it's not. And I think it comes down to we the people.
Yeah.
It comes down to us holding all of our elected officials, accountable. It takes us holding our major organizations accountable that could be part of the solution.
Saying to them what? What's the message?
Well, one message would be one child that has a high lead levels, one child too many. Mm-hmm. Here we are sitting back here, how many years dealing with something as simple as a lead ordinance.
Yes.
And yet, I personally heard a story of a woman who is pregnant and now is dealing with her fetus being poisoned with lead. This child's coming into this world.
Right. With its hands tied behind its back.
I'm just like, I'm dumbfounded. Thank you for helping me,
Yeah.
because it's so emotional to me.
Jacqueline, we got about a minute
happening.
left, but
Sure.
but to Sena's point, and
Right.
there was this riptide that started in downtown Toledo, and we've been watching the waves, right? Development and betterment of life, quality of life moments. However, it starts to hit some moguls and doesn't get over, let's say, Cherry Street, doesn't get over some areas that it needs to reach. How do we get beyond that? And we've got about a minute left.
We really need to, It sounds kind of redundant, but you have to have those community conversations because otherwise, what you end up with is gentrification.
So more grassroots efforts.
Well, yes, and with the, if the goal is to make downtown better, why does that mean that everything gets priced so high and we develop it to the point to where the people that live there and have grown up there and have roots there can no longer afford to live there? Yes, and then everybody that is coming in is new and has, and just want, to be where everything is cool and
it sounds like a
upbeat,
vicious cycle.
It does, and so. So to that, I would say we have to engage the full community, the people that live there, the people that have grown up there, the school systems.
Yeah.
It's got to happen. The churches, the faith leaders in those areas. Mm-hmm. It's super important getting feedback before you just come in and you demolish things and tear things down and want to make everything new.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it better.
I don't care what your political stance is. I urge you to go to YouTube, check out Zip Code Matters, go call that up, watch it, 28 minutes, you'll get through it, you'll be amazed at what you hear. And the website, ToledoFHC.org for Fair Housing Center of Toledo. Sena, Jacqueline, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be back. We're going to be joined by Kate Sommerfeld from ProMedica to talk more about this subject right after this. Welcome back for a final time here on Leading Edge. Jeff Smith with you. Kate Sommerfeld joining us now from ProMedica, Social Determinants of Health Institute. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
You said you wanted to give a little plug here right before we get started.
Yeah, so first of all, just to Sena and the whole team that produced Zip Code Matters. I'll never forget, I think it was mid-pandemic, and we got the phone call that Sena and the Fair Housing Center were going to produce a documentary. And at that point, everybody was staying very isolated and we weren't connecting. And then to have a documentary produced by a local talent, Sena, just amazing, 27 awards across the country, and certainly coming off of International Women's Day. What a champion, what an advocate, but also just an incredible light in our community. And so just a huge recognition to her individually, and then also to the Fair Housing Center. She was awarded a number of different awards, Inspirational Woman Award, the LA Film Award, and so the list continues. But I think just in this moment, sometimes in Toledo, we don't always recognize just incredible talent and light. And so just want to say thank you to her and for her leadership.
Wonderful. I appreciate you bringing that up. Let's continue the conversation that we had with Jacqueline and also Sena. But I brought up the riptide, right? The fact that you start that betterment of the community, but then it hits some roadblocks. So are you seeing that, especially 2023 as we go forward and we're trying to do something better for the community, but what roadblocks are you hitting and how do you get past them?
Yeah, well, certainly for our industry in healthcare, it's tough financial times if you pick up for any industry across the country, but certainly in healthcare, we're going through it right now. And
well, let me stop you there, Kate. You shouldn't have brought that up because it gets me on something else. But is it biting off more than you can chew? Because obviously Sena says she's going to New York to talk to a healthcare institution about their interest in this topic, but healthcare is healthcare, but there's also those social determinants of health and quality of life. How do you balance it and maintain your corporation?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's a great place to start, Jeff. What we know from research is that anywhere between 40 to 60% of individuals' health is actually determined by things like housing and transportation and food. We know on any given day around $50 million locally, $50 billion nationally, impacts on health related conditions, specifically around housing. So things like lead poisoning. Sena talked a little bit about the impact that we have in our local market. Some of our census tracts, up to 35% of our kids have been poisoned through paint in old homes. Asthma conditions really exacerbated by housing conditions. So they are inextricably linked. We know that housing is a health issue. And certainly for our kids that are showing up every day in our emergency room, our seniors who are living really in poor housing conditions, it's all connected. And it's really part of our mission.
So part of the mission is obviously moving this conversation forward. And, we talked to Sena and Jacqueline. What is the action plan? Where is the action plan? I put that ball in your lap right now. Yeah. What is it? Where is it?
Yeah, I've been working in community spaces on community issues for the last 15 years. And I'll say there's more momentum. Certainly more needs to be done. And both Jacqueline and Sena mentioned that. Fair housing, legal aid, doing incredible work in our community to really advocate.
But is it your responsibility to take the ball, or is it like they said, it should be more of a grassroots effort?
I think it's both community, right? Individuals who are living in in the neighborhoods that we're serving or trying to serve, making sure that there's voice and choice, but also the institutions, the organizations that are in this community. And it really is that combined effort that's incredibly important. And I think I'm proud, I'm optimistic. Certainly a lot more has to be done. We recently partnered through our foundation and the ProMedica eBide Promise, so that was a philanthropic effort to support the Junction neighborhood. Obviously incredibly important. A lot of our racial disparities, whether it's around housing, infant mortality, are showing up. We just closed our second year. We did a $2.8 million grant. Again, these are philanthropic dollars in partnership with the Owens Community Corning Foundation, excuse me. And so I'm optimistic. Habitat for Humanity helped improve, provide ramps for seniors, help them stay in place. Kids that were normally, lead poisoning, they actually encapsulated that and did home repair. So I think as a community, certainly more to be done, but also we've got great momentum. And I think for the first time, or one of the first times that I've seen as a community, we're really rallying to say collectively, how do we all bring our pieces, whether it's investments, advocacy, voice, but really empower the residents that are living in the neighborhoods.
And our last 30 seconds, is the secret jobs? Is the secret healthcare? What is the secret sauce?
Yes,
Yeah.
right? It's all of that. Certainly from a workforce development perspective, we're providing a lot of job training opportunities, trying to remove barriers to help folks build wealth over time. For those that are able to be employed, we have an STNA training program, which is the entry level for nursing. We have ENT training programs, about 200 folks a year going through those programs.
And we see Toledo Public Schools starting up these magnet schools, getting kids right into professions where they need to be. Kate, thank you so much. We appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Stay right there. A final word right after this. Boy, I hope you got something out of our conversation today. Once again, I want to point you in the direction of Toledo Fair Housing Center. You see the web address right there at the bottom of your screen. If you think you have issues that need addressed, go to there. I appreciate it as always. Have a great week.